Hello, loves. Welcome. This is 2026. It is a cloudy Sunday. I don't know why I'm telling you the weather because I know exactly what I want to talk about today. I just parted ways with a friend of mine who I hadn't seen since undergrad. We used to be really close in our first year. Shout out Rue. She watched the film that just came out on Netflix called Yoh Bestie, and she's like, "Oh my God, you look even smaller in person." Now, we all know that the camera adds 10 pounds, but literally, I've been getting comments like, "Your weight loss is astonishing." Do you know how much effort it takes to sit and text the word astonishing? But it has been, and I want to talk about it because I barely recognize myself in that film. Look, the face card never declined, not gonna start declining. However, it's such a different version of me. And yeah, there's shame. And I don't like that that was my first reaction. I feel some type of way for feeling some type of way about it. Because ultimately, like, I'm really proud of myself. I'm making my little comeback, Yana. And that's something to be proud of. But all I could focus on was, wow, Fix, you were really, really big. And she asked me, she was like, when did you shoot the film? And I was like, oh, May, June. We finished in end June. She's like, of 25? I was like, yeah, of 25. This is just last year. It's barely like 7 months ago. So the transition has been pretty intense. To be honest, it hasn't felt that way. But when I look at myself, I'm like, I can't help but think that that is a completely different person. However, I appreciate her because she's the one that made the decision at the end of June to stop drinking alcohol, to stop eating flour, and to stop eating sugar. I am grateful to her in that regard. I'm grateful to that version of myself because I literally wouldn't be here without her, without the belief that she had to have had in herself to make those life changes. And so that's what I want to come and talk about today. Sometimes we get our realizations and our revelation in an aha moment, like a lightning bolt moment, leading up to particularly my decision to quit alcohol. I had already decided that I was going to quit sugar and flour that weekend. The alcohol decision came maybe a couple days later. I had been speaking to a friend of mine who is, one of the greatest prayer warriors. And she had suggested to me to fast. She'd actually suggested it a couple of weeks prior, but I hadn't done it. So that morning, it might have been like a Friday. I didn't really have much going on. I was just like, you know what? I'll just do a half day. I'll do a half day and then I'm gonna listen to what God has to tell me because there's something that I need to know. And at 11:30, 30 minutes before I would break my fast, I decided I'm going to close this fast with a meditation. Just a meditation, just to make sure that I'm making space for God's voice to be heard. In this meditation, I literally get flashbacks, one after another, after another, after another, of all of the most traumatic moments, mostly in my relationship life, but all of the most traumatic moments in my life, and in every single one of them, alcohol was involved. And in that moment, I realized how much peace I had robbed myself of just by choosing to continue to drink. It was such a sobering moment because I mourned my peace. I mourned the time that I had spent in unnecessary dramas and chaos that I could have been spending doing something else, that I could have been spending investing in myself, that I could have been spending growing, But at the same time, there was a compassion for myself. Just like right now, seeing myself in Yoh Bestie, there's a compassion for that version of me that allowed myself to get that big, to gain that much weight. And I have to love her because she's the one that brought me to that point where I realized how much I was missing out on. In an attempt to self-medicate, I created situations to medicate about. So, without getting into details about those situations, in fact, I opened up about it on a podcast this week, which will come out the next week, um, about some of the more dramatic moments of my romantic life where, yes, alcohol was definitely involved. But I got out of that meditation and I knew exactly what to do. And it's so interesting. I was having this conversation with another friend about sugar. She's done so well. Like, she's snatched, she's looking toned, but she was saying, no, I still have a ways to go. And I think it's the sugar. I love sweets. I love snacking on candy. She looks at me so sincerely. She's like, I just don't know what to do, Fix. And I looked at her, I said, well, you need to stop eating sugar. And she was like, yeah, but why does that seem so difficult? And I'm like, well, that's something that you're going to have to do the investigation on, because we all know what we need to do, but we're not doing it. And that is the thing that needs to be examined, not self-flagellating because you're not doing it, not being down on yourself because you're not doing what you're supposed to be, not labeling yourself with words like lazy or undisciplined because you're not doing what you need to do. No, you need to find out, why is it when you know what you need to do, you're not doing it? And when you get to the bottom of that pursuit, that's where the real change begins. And that's what we do in the Mind First Circle. We're going to go through a little bit of a rebrand. In fact, I'm going through a little bit of a rebrand myself. Not even a rebrand, it's more of a pivot. I feel like I've rebranded. Okay, this is the rebrand. But in the spirit of openness, I've been so lucky that I've been platformed in many ways. I've been platformed on national TV, now on an international platform like Netflix. I platform myself on my Instagram account and my YouTube channel. And these are gifts that I believe I've gotten from God, but I have been platformed for a reason. I am not famous for the sake of being famous, which can be an enjoyable pursuit for the ego level, right? It's nice to be recognized for what you do, but recognition for the sake of recognition, fame for the sake of fame, no. I truly believe God platformed me to share a larger and deeper message. So that was the alcohol sobriety piece, and almost overnight, I stopped drinking after that moment. Look, I will keep it 100, okay? I had a bottle of Prosecco and a bottle of white wine. And by the end of that weekend, the white wine was gone and I ended up pouring out half of the Prosecco. And I remember so clearly smelling, that fermented grape, because it was now bubbling all over the kitchen sink. And so the alcohol was sort of evaporating off of the surface. And I was just like, oh, what a waste. And I was like, yeah, you still have some ways to go, bitch. Again, not that long ago, but I feel like a completely different person. I do think one of the more unique things about my journey is that the sobriety and changing my diet happened at the same time, damn near. It was at the end of June, and I made the decision to quit flour and sugar, which was honestly an easier decision for me than quitting alcohol. There was something that I was shedding. I was new again in Johannesburg after 10 years. I'd moved here. I was out of town for almost 2 months because I was shooting this film. And, coming back to a cold apartment, empty because I didn't have any furniture, but I'd heard the voice of God again a couple of months prior to say, Joburg is where you need to be again. So listening to that, then feeling a little bit disconnected with myself. In fact, I had wandered into the Virgin Active kind of by accident and got into a contract before, like maybe 3 weeks before choosing to stop drinking and choosing to stop consuming sugar and flour. And I will tell you now, it wasn't the gym that made me lose weight. I've always been an active person, not super active, but I've always gone to the gym. I've always done physical activities. And I can tell you now that no, the gym doesn't sustain weight loss. It's a great activity for your mental health. Maybe if you want to build muscle, that's also great for your body and your longevity, your cardiovascular strength. But weight, no, everyone knows that weight happens in the kitchen, that your six pack is formed in the kitchen. And so I discovered a book called Bright Line Eating by Dr. Susan P. Thompson. This woman was a heroin addict and a crack cocaine addict. She's got a PhD in, I think, addiction, neuroscience, that whole world. And if you knew anything about me, I love neuroscience. So just the fact that she approaches it from that perspective was so helpful to me, because I was starting to learn about how my brain wasn't working in alignment with my goals and how I needed to rewire my brain for my goals. Leading up to the end of June, I was actually starting to love my body more. So I watched this episode recently by M on the Brain. It's called Planet M. She's a neuroscientist. She's super young. She's a PhD in neuroscience, and she sort of anchors knowledge about spirituality, personal transformation, personal development, identity shifting into neuroscience, which I really appreciate. And she had an episode on manifesting a slimmer body or manifesting your dream body. And she had told her friend that you're not going to love your body until you love your body. So even in a state like this where you hate yourself and you hate your body, even if you do lose weight, you're going to still hate your body. You're not going to feel that satisfaction that you think you're going to feel when you're thin. And that is so key to all of this, because you become the person that you are desiring or envisioning by embodying that version of yourself now, by walking around like you're that bitch now. And there was a moment, multiple moments leading up to me making that decision. Forget even making that decision, leading up to me discovering that book before I made my decision. And I think the way that I unlocked that for myself was through visualization and meditation. And I'll tell you exactly how I did it. So, because of all the knowledge that I consume about personal development, I was like, okay, I am pretty sure the reason I am not losing weight, in fact, I am gaining weight, is because a part of me believes that I can't. A part of me believes that this is impossible for me. I could clock it, I could feel it. I could feel that internal barrier to my goal in this regard. And I was like, well, Fix, you have recognized patterns of limiting beliefs in the past. What have you done to break those limiting beliefs? Well, I have meditated. I have visualized myself as the version of myself who has overcome this limitation. And eventually I overcame the limitation. Cool. How can we transpose that onto weight loss? Because if you are struggling, and you have been, guys, I have been through, I counted 6.5 cycles of gaining weight and losing weight. Since I'm not even going to count the time I bought a Verimark. Do you remember the infomercial? The infomercial channel was like a telesales, what do you call it? Like where basically they have a show, but the entire point of the show is to sell you on a product. Well, we had a channel in South Africa called Verimark, and so they sold Verimark products, including various plethora of weight loss products. And when I was 8 years old, I saved 250 Rand to buy this soap that allegedly trapped the fat in your body and like sunk it to the bottom of your stomach so that you could go and basically poop out the fat. And I remember their demonstration. I know I'm on a tangent, I'm going to loop it back, but I remember the demonstration that like grated the soap into a cup with water and oil sitting at the top, and they grated the soap onto the oil, and slowly you could see the oil sort of form around the soap and then sink to the bottom. And I was like, that's it, that's how I'm losing this weight. Mind you, I've never been a fat kid, but I did have to debug myself, right? So 6 cycles altogether of gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight since I was around like 21 years old. And this is the first time I'm like, okay, this is me. So I knew that I had a cycle, a pattern. We talk about patterns on this channel all the time. I knew that I had a pattern. Like once I lost weight, I would gain it right back, going back to my old habits. So I knew that there was an identity anchored in me that was stronger than my desire to be thin, happy, and free and be in my dream body. And I went after it. I was just like, cool, let's go after that. Essentially, what I did is I would then meditate and visualize myself in certain scenarios. The first one was that I would be wearing pants, a pair of blue, the Giving Movement pants that I absolutely love but had never fit me since I bought them. And I would imagine, feel myself sliding them over my legs. And they had a mutete. What do you call mutete in English? Like, you know that line in the front of the pants? They had that and they were showing those lines, those ironing lines, the seams. Are they seams? Bitch, I don't know. I'm terrible at ironing. Anyway, so that was the first visualization. The second scene was me wearing these good American jeans, these size 6 jeans. Again, bought them, never fit me since the day I bought them. And then the third scene was me sitting at a restaurant. And when asked about the sides that I wanted, I asked them for carrots. It was weirdly specific because I didn't necessarily like carrots, but I knew they were abundant. Anytime that I did order a side of vegetables, at least in a South African restaurant, it came really carrot heavy. And I was just like, you know what? I might as well just be that guy that orders carrots instead of fries or instead of mashed potatoes. So I did that. And I ran the scenario in my mind over and over and over again. This is now months again before making that decision to quit consuming sugar and flour. And I'm going to get into why sugar and flour are literally the enemy in a little bit. And I hope I can articulate it in a way that will really register. But just going back to playing those scenes over and over and over again, it was a sensational experience. Literally, it was the experience of pulling the pants over my legs. It was the experience of zipping those jeans up with ease. It was the experience of feeling proud that I ordered something that was good for me and my body. It was the sensation of satisfaction. It was the sensation of lightness. It was the sensation of freedom. And slowly identifying with that sensation of what it would feel like to be thin and in my dream body now. Embodying it now. Being it now. Even though my hips didn't lie, even though my boobs were wrecking my back, doesn't matter. What I was feeling in that moment was real. And your brain doesn't know the difference between what is happening in the imagination and what is happening in the three-dimensional world that you can feel, taste, touch, etc., etc. So, what ended up happening was I get emails from Hay House all the time. They send me promotional material, videos, ebooks, books. This one had just stood out to me. I had maybe favorited the email, maybe. All I know is that it just kept popping into my consciousness randomly. I wouldn't even be thinking about losing weight and what I was going to do. I just knew that, Oh, there was that email that I saw a week ago, which then turned into there was that email about that book that I saw 2 weeks ago. And then maybe I went and opened it and I was like, that's interesting. And then one day I just went and then I just got the damn book. And I consumed it in 48 hours when I decided that this was it. This was what I was going to do. And I want to say, even though you might not identify with the anti flour and sugar movement, which you absolutely should for reasons I'm about to tell you right now, whatever it is that you choose to do when you start identity shifting into the version of yourself that is in your dream body, it will work, and it will work for you specifically. Of course, I think that this method is the bee's knees because it's worked so well for me. And according to the case studies, it's worked well for hundreds of thousands of people. But you will find the path that is right for you. And by the way, if you feel like the Mind First Circle might be good for you, because again, it is a really unique perspective quitting sugar, flour, and alcohol like at the same time. Alcohol definitely being a big contributor to my consuming of too many calories. All that is to say, if that resonates, then the Mind First Circle is for you. We'll be releasing other digital products soon. I will link it below. But you will find your thing. You will find the thing that works for you. Again, I'm not going to knock the gym because it's good for you in so many ways, but weight loss, no. We've all watched The Biggest Loser. And if you've read the statistics, they all gain the weight back because they haven't changed the identity within. I'm not going to talk about psycho-cybernetics right at this moment too much, but it is a book by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. It was written, I think, in the 60s, and it basically was the foundations of self image. This is basically identity, how you see yourself. It was a plastic surgeon. He would work on people's noses, stomachs, change them from the outside. But some of them still went home and had the exact same insecurities because their self image hadn't changed. The identity had not changed. That is what I was doing in my meditations and my visualizations and my prayers. So now going back to discovering this Bright Line Eating book, Dr. Susan P. Thompson. This girl is a former heroin addict, now PhD about addictions and stuff. And she's talking about why flour and sugar are addictive. And she's drawing these really convincing parallels between the processing of cocaine, morphine, and heroin with sugar and flour. And at first, it could sound extreme, but when you look at it, you strip the essence of the coca leaf, or in the case of heroin, the poppy seed. Like if you take a coca leaf and just chew it, which is what indigenous people of South America did for like a little energy boost, you are not going to become an addict. You're not going to get addicted to cocaine. You're not going to go steal your grandmother's DSTV decoder to go get a coca leaf or to go get a poppy flower, right? But you will drive out in the middle of the night. You will spend your last cent. You will spend, you will go out of your way to get that fix of sugar or whatever it is that you're craving, to get that slice of pizza. We behave that way around certain kinds of food, but it's so normalized that we don't realize that we're addicted. But that's how we're behaving. Because also, for some people, me included, if you think about quitting sugar or flour or cakes or whatever, there is a bleakness there. I would say it was almost the same as quitting alcohol, which is like an addictive substance. It's when you process, reduce these plants essentially to their essence that they start becoming addictive. It's the same story with high fructose corn syrup and corn. I am not about to get obese by consuming corn or sweet corn every single day. I am not going to steal my dad's flat screen TV to go trade it for sweet corn. Do you know what I mean? But when you distill it to its essence, you basically, in sugar's case, or sugar cane or sugar beets or wheat, you get a flour, and the resemblance is really in not just in the appearance of the flowers, but in the processing of these substances is really worrying. And it's a compelling case. Not to mention, in the book, she shows you the brain scans, compares side by side the brain scans of mice that have been addicted to sugar and mice that have been addicted to cocaine. And the brains of the mice that are addicted to sugar are worse than the brains that have been addicted to cocaine. Cocaine addicted rats introduced to sugar water will choose the sugar water any day. And in fact, when the sugar water was taken away, they weren't addicted to cocaine anymore. It's like when you read this stuff, when you inform yourself about the neuroscience, and I'm going to get deep into the reason why your brain is not aligned to your weight loss goals in the next couple of lessons. I'm going to be talking more about my weight loss journey, my sobriety journey, tying it into how I fixed my brain, how I reprogrammed myself through meditation, through visualization to meet those specific goals, because that's what I did. Because that's what got me from this to this in 2 months, and this to this in 7 months, which is where I'm at right now. Literally, you can change your life. On the sobriety podcast I was on, without giving too much away, I was asked, like, something like, maybe why the drama? Like, why were you drinking so much? Or what were you doing? What were you thinking when you were consuming so much alcohol and there was so much chaos in my life? And I was just thinking, it just didn't occur to me that I could change. And I feel like a lot of people are trapped because they, for some reason, for some probably really good reason, believe that it is too late, they're too far gone, or they might have made the wrong turn in their lives and now it's impossible to change your life. It is not. We are dynamic human beings. That lie that we were told, that your brain deteriorates over time or your brain cells die and they can't be, basically, I don't know. I remember in primary school, I just had this collective consciousness thought that your brain is the way your brain is and there's nothing that you can do. You can't heal your brain cells die over time, you can't replenish your brain cells, your brain is pretty much fixed the way it is for the rest of your life. No, there's something called neuroplasticity, and that is how we learn new things. That's how we learn new behaviors. The same way you learn maths, you can unlearn whatever belief that you have about you being fat for the rest of your life. Whether it's, I have the fat gene, I know, super controversial right now. We can thank Oprah for that, even though we'll always love her. Or that, oh, I've had babies, or oh, I have this particular illness, so I can't lose weight, or oh, I don't like exercise, so I can't lose weight, or whatever it is. I'm not strong, so I can't lose weight. I'm a girl, so I can't lose weight. I'm black, I'm a black woman, so I can't lose weight. That was a big one. That was a big one for me because somewhere, I picked up the thought that it was harder for black women to lose weight. And that's the identity I was stuck in, and therefore that was the reality that I manifested for myself. People are sick. People are dying of entirely avoidable diseases. People are wallowing away in bodies that they hate. People are looking at themselves in the mirror every single day and hating themselves. Entirely avoidable. All you have to do is believe in yourself. But I know it's easier said than done. I want to leave you knowing that you can absolutely transform your life. You can absolutely transform your body if that's what you want, right? I'm not sitting here telling you this is what you need to do to lose weight if you don't want to lose weight. Like, if it's something that you don't want to do, then more power to you. Good. I want those who do want to lose weight, who want to make a body transformation, who do want to get into their dream bodies, to know that it is absolutely possible, but it all starts in your mind first, which is why my company is called Mind First Africa. We're given certain things in life, certain privileges, certain platforms, so that we can transcend ourselves in some ways. And I feel like this is my contribution. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned something. I am so happy that people are receiving the YouTube channel and me and this whole idea. I think I'll always have the capacity to be the entertainer that I am. I'll always have the capacity to be funny. I'll always have the capacity to share my personal experiences in the hopes that someone out there can learn what not to do. Ultimately, I just want to share the knowledge that I've accumulated that has helped me transform my life for the better so that you also know that it's possible for yourself. Anyway, this has been 2026.